happening tonight in Vancouver.
Another hard summer ahead for BC attractions depending on tourists.
From museums to amusement parks to science centres, these sites are part of BC's world-renowned tourism industry. And right now, people in tourism are hurting.
The province divvying up $50 million among some of the most popular.
I fully expect to see some boots on the ground before the end of the year.
Surrey Mayor Doug McCallum still wants to see a municipal police force in his city by the end of the year. But during a state of heightened gang violence in the Lower Mainland, some think he's not being realistic.
The fact that there are less suicides, I'm actually really surprised, to be honest.
According to the BC Coroner's Service, the number of people dying by suicide has actually gone down in the last year, despite the toll the pandemic has taken on many people's mental health.
This is City News everywhere.
Dozens of BC's most popular tourist attractions heading into another summer of seeing only a fraction of the millions of visitors they usually see are getting a financial boost.
From museums to amusement parks to science centres, these sites are part of BC's world-renowned tourism industry. And right now, people in tourism are hurting.
The province divvying up $50 million of the dollars earmarked for the industry, up to $1 million each for about 40 organizations that see 75,000 or more visitors a year, and up to $500,000 each for smaller attractions and some tour bus operators. It's a welcome boost.
The industry has obviously been devastated by COVID-19, and it's going to take a long time for us to recover. But I do think that the government understands that, and they have suggested to us that we're going to be continuing the discussions going forward. But a very good first step.
In 2019, we had almost 143,000 people move through the gates at the H.R. MacMillan Space Center. That went to 33,000 in 2020. Almost a 76% decline.
Even those in the tourism industry not getting direct benefit from this money are thankful.
They're critical to the tourism industry in this province because they literally drive people to the smaller tourism attractions throughout the province. So it's very important that we continue to support them.
For some of the larger attractions, it will help, but no question, these are the businesses that have suffered greatly since the start of the pandemic.
But for organizations that don't fit the standard mold or are seasonal, like Vancouver's PNE, it's not nearly enough. They've asked the province for millions to stay afloat.
Most organizations have been able to access multiple programs, both provincially and federally. The PNE has not to date, and what we are looking for is just fair access to COVID recovery programs that will get us through this period of time and into recovery like everybody else.
The province pushing back to the City of Vancouver to help the PNE, and looking for a good share of federal money in the recent budget for tourism-supported events and festivals. The Premier also convinced once restrictions lift, local support will lift the industry.
Pent-up desire of British Columbians to go and see their friends, to go to places that they always meant to go to, but the past year they've been barred from going to, means, I believe, that come this summer there is going to be a lot of people moving around, seeing things they've never seen before.
That day is coming, Horgan says, but not until after this long weekend. And he says the province will continue to look for what supports the industry needs beyond this new grant and others already in place. For City News in Victoria, I'm News 1130's Lisa Yusta.
The Surrey of today has become too big not to have its own police service.
Surrey Mayor Doug McCallum still wants to see a municipal police force in his city by the end of the year. But during a state of heightened gang violence in the Lower Mainland, some think he's not being realistic.
I fully expect to see some boots on the ground before the end of the year.
I don't think you're going to see actual boots on the ground that's going to make a difference in the municipality of Surrey by the end of this year.
In an online State of the City address, Mayor McCallum says the Surrey Police Service's leadership team is filling out and is continuing to recruit officers. But some say the cost far outweighs the benefit.
I would stop the process. If you just look at the cost factor with the transition, of Surrey going to their own independent municipal. They did budget for a lower amount. I think it was around $65 million. Experts in the area are telling me now it could be upwards of $500 million just to transition this.
Meanwhile, gang violence continues to plague the Lower Mainland, with high-profile daylight executions happening in public spaces. Brian Sauvé, with the union representing the RCMP, critical of the Surrey Police Service for continuing to recruit active officers who could be addressing gang violence.
So are our staffing levels in British Columbia, policing services generally, at 2018 levels, or are they at 2021 levels? And is that having an impact on how we can impact and penetrate organized crime?
We know Surrey has not hired officers on the ground for a couple of years now. And I believe that chronic shortage is certainly impacting not only trying to deal with the conflict around the gang violence, but certainly how they serve the community in Surrey right now.
Surrey RCMP has pledged to tighten their leash on those with known gang ties, increasing curfew checks and exploring more roadside pullovers of gang members. And in Delta, their municipal police are using similar methods. Sauvé says those tactics have worked in the past.
It was that specific tactic where you were patrolling and stopping and basically making life extremely difficult for those who are known to be associated to organized crime.
As for starting up the Surrey Police Service, Heed says 2024 could be a more realistic time frame for some new kind of policing model.
We may see some movement towards either having a hybrid model or partnering with another municipality to deliver the police service, or stick with the RCMP.
In Surrey, Keir Junos, City News.
Another warning about potential gang violence. According to BC's Combined Forces Special Enforcement Unit, these 11 men are allegedly connected to the ongoing gang violence in the Lower Mainland. The men range in age from 21 to 40. The warning falls on the heels of a decision yesterday by Vancouver police to publicly name 6 other alleged gang members. It's believed all these men pose a significant risk to public safety. Police are expecting the violence to escalate and asking the public to avoid interacting with these individuals.
The evidence is right in front of you. If you're not emotionally accountable, if you're not taking the time to connect with your kids, you will lose them.
In the midst of ongoing gang violence across Metro Vancouver, experts believe parents play an important role in keeping youth out of crime. Just ahead, the call for parents to be emotionally present. BC is reporting 411 new cases of COVID-19 across the province today. Of the active cases, 360 people are currently hospitalized, 127 whom are in intensive care, and 2 more people have died. 37 of the new cases are in the Vancouver Coastal Health Authority and 285 were in Fraser Health. Everyone 18 and older can now book their vaccination. A Canadian COVID-19 vaccine is taking another major step forward. Quebec drug company Medicago is reporting a positive interim Phase 2 clinical trial safety. They say their shot could be ready for Health Canada to review by the summer. The Phase 3 trial is already underway with 30,000 volunteers in Canada, the US, and Britain. It's also expanding to Brazil this week. Medicago is in talks with the federal government to see if the vaccine could be used on a mix and match basis for booster shots, since most Canadians will get their first shot by the fall. Despite the massive toll the pandemic has taken on many people's mental health, the BC Coroner's Service says the number of deaths by suicide has actually gone down in the last year.
The fact that there are less suicides, I'm actually really surprised, to be honest.
There has been no increase in the number of lives lost to suicide since the pandemic was declared last year, according to preliminary data from the BC Coroner's Service. From April 2020 to February 2021, there were 534 confirmed deaths by suicide in the province, 12% fewer than the same time frame 1 year earlier. Andrea Paquette with the Stigma-Free Society says although she's hopeful after hearing the news, she notes there's much more behind these numbers that needs to be considered.
One thing I always wonder when stats are released, especially with suicide rates, what is the age of those people who die by suicide? That's really important to consider as well. How many of those suicides are under 24, and has that changed from the year before? As well, we have to think of substance use. a lot of people who are dying by suicide do so by overdose.
Stacey Ashton with the Crisis Centre of BC isn't surprised by the decrease. She says the crisis line has been especially busy during the pandemic, which has led her to believe more people are reaching out for help in times of crisis.
It's feeling more okay to feel not okay. And we're seeing more men call the lines and reach out as well. And that's been historically a group that's been hard to reach, partly because there's more of a stigma of being weak or seeming weak. But with everybody kind of accepting that this is hard and it's okay to be angry or frustrated or despairing or hopeless, you could still talk about it and you could still reach out.
During the pandemic, Poquette says the Stigma-Free Society, which educates youth on mental health, expanded to offer in-class mental health support digitally across Canada. She says it's important to reach people before they are in crisis.
Because we're preventative education. We're not just about being there when the crisis hits. We want to make sure that people have the tools and resources they need to take care of themselves mentally.
If you or someone you know is having thoughts of suicide, you can contact 1-800-SUICIDE or a crisis center in your region. In New Westminster, Ashley Burr, City News.
Vancouver police are using new technology in hopes of solving a cold case from 1953. Known as Babes in the Woods, the case involves the discovery of 2 murdered boys aged 7 and 8 in Stanley Park. Using DNA recently extracted from the victims' bones and information from private ancestry companies, police hope to identify possible relatives of the boys and provide some answers as to who the boys were and what led to their deaths.
No homicide case is ever closed before it is solved, and this case has remained open since 1953. Over the years, VPD homicide investigators have tracked down numerous leads with the hopes of someday identifying the victims or the person responsible for this unsolved crime. As time passes and advancements in science occur, we are able to try new techniques, and this is exactly what we're doing here.
We're really looking at the surface level stuff and not asking the deeper questions that might give us the answers.
As communities grapple with a recent string of shootings across Metro Vancouver, experts are asking parents to be emotionally available to their kids.
The glaring underlying factor here is a lot of these young men, and it's almost always young men in our community. They have, a lot of them, I say most of them have fathers in the household, but they don't have emotionally involved fathers in the household, right? So the dads are there, they're doing their bit, they're providing financially a lot of the times, yet the missing component is, where is that emotional involvement? Where's those meaningful conversations?
In order to keep young people out of crime, Councillor Vijay Maan, who works with at-risk youth, says important relationships start at home. In an open letter, he explains one common factor in his work with youth is the absence of emotionally present fathers, something he's calling a phenomenon in the South Asian community.
Systemic stuff, that's not really being asked. We're really looking at the surface level stuff and not asking the deeper questions that might give us the answers here or help us get closer to the answers as to why this is a phenomenon in the South Asian community right now. Immigrant communities have a tough time because, on one side, the parents are coming to this country to, for a better life and to provide opportunities for themselves and their kids that they wouldn't have otherwise. But in that, there's sacrifices, right? A lot of these parents are working shift jobs and, shift work. And what's lost in that is a meaningful time and meaningful conversation that they can have with their kids at a young age.
In the letter, Mon further writes, be there for your child. Spend time speaking with them and trying to understand them. This requires work, real work.
Open talk, having public dialogue about this. And the main thing that I'm seeing is that the South Asian community has a huge stigma towards mental health and even about family issues. These dads have to look around, the evidence is right in front of you. If you're not emotionally accountable, if you're not taking the time to connect with your kids, you will lose them.
Active law enforcement member and founder of the Kids Play Foundation, Cal Dosanjh, agrees with the letter and adds that a lack of a healthy home life is a common thread among those who get involved with gangs.
As far as I can recall, is that acceptance and identity at home are huge factors that need to be factored into the general equation. These are important variables in the house, because when these youth are not finding that acceptance or that love at home, they're looking for it elsewhere in very destructive settings.
And advice for anyone who may be enticed by gang life.
Violence that comes with the lifestyle is also very real. And those are serious consequences and repercussions they're going to have to suffer if they do end up going down that path. So at the end of the day, the money is not worth it.
In Vancouver, Miranda Fatour, City News. Vancouver City Council has formally apologized for discrimination towards passengers on board the Kamagada Maru steamship. In 1914, 375 passengers from British India were forced to remain on board without access to proper food, water, and medical aid because of racist immigration laws. The ship eventually returned to India, where tragically 19 passengers were shot and killed. Many others were injured or jailed. The city says the apology is part of an ongoing effort to recognize historic discrimination against the South Asian community.
Today, as we come up to the 107th anniversary of the ship arriving in Vancouver, my council colleagues and I sincerely apologize for the City of Vancouver's role in the Kamagada Maru incident. City Council in 1914 supported the laws that prevented passengers from disembarking, and for this and all the repercussions that followed, we are sorry. I would like to say on record the incredible amount of respect and admiration that my council colleagues and I have for all immigrants and refugees who contribute in countless ways to making this city the rich, diverse, and welcoming place that it is today.
On Sunday, City Hall will be illuminated orange to officially mark Kamagada Maru Remembrance Day. Translink has announced Kevin Quinn as its new CEO. After a competitive international search, the former CEO of the Maryland Transit Administration will make his way to Metro Vancouver. Quinn has been overseeing the MTA, one of the largest multimodal transit systems in the U.S. since 2017. Translink says Quinn will be integral in leading their post-pandemic recovery. An avid runner, Quinn says he's looking forward to exploring the region's great trails and the seawall. Swimming season is upon us. On Saturday, the Vancouver Park Board will open the Kitsilano, New Brighton, and Second Beach pools. Due to pandemic safety measures, the pools will reopen with reduced capacities, and visitors must arrive swim-ready as change rooms remain closed. All swim sessions must be booked online in advance, and registration opens Wednesday. Also starting Saturday, lifeguards will begin patrolling at 10 city beaches, and the taps will be turned on at most city spray parks. Vancouver's news is always available on the radio with News 1130 or online anytime at citynews1130.com. Your next edition of City News is tonight at 11. Thanks for watching. Have a great night.